So before, where you could get like a meal, we'll say Day Taylor stew, that would add to diet morale, say 2% every time, right? And that was pretty simple. You could just eat that all the time and kind of keep adding 2% every time. Here, what it's going to do is that there's going to be degradation of that bonus, because you need to have a variety as well. So you can't just always eat the same thing. Now that can get a bit difficult, when you're on the poorer side, just starting out as an adventurer and stuff like that. But one of the hedge against that too, which is nice, is that it's only 35% of the whole. It's not going to take you from 100 down to 0. And then rest at 15%. That's a small chunk of it as well, but obviously just like diet, it can add up and so forth. So for the resting, I recommend typically you're going to go, you want to make sure you're going into a dungeon as rested as you typically can be. And what I often will do in between contracts is, before I've picked up another contract, so I know I'm not on like a timeline, I don't have a deadline, is I can come back to the inn here, and you can rest for like a whole day, sleep for 24 hours. One of the things that really helps with that is to make sure you've eaten just before you go to bed, and it gives you what's called a satiety buff. So, like, let's see, I'm gonna just do this right now with the figs. So you'll get this right here. Basically, you're full. So you can see that it's going to give you a few different things. Situational morale change is going to go up by 0.01% for every turn, which is nice. But the big thing about this is I would basically walk right up next to the bed in the inn, get this buff, and then go immediately to sleep. And a really cool thing that happens with that is you do not accrue any hunger when you're sleeping if you have this satiety buff, even if it's just like one stack of it. So that's pretty helpful to know. That's going to save you a lot of time with food and stuff like that. So let's see here. All right, we're gonna grab some pancakes and a couple of cheeses. Cool. Now, a lot of people, and I obviously I did this to start as well, but I would often like kind of set straight out to the first dungeon, right? I kind of learned that that's a tough one. Even getting just one level is going to make a big difference, because you get a new ability, you get another ability point, a new skill, that sort of stuff. So I'll go around, I'll talk to people, and doing things like just talking to people as well, that raises your lifestyle sanity. So social interactions and entertainment, completing contracts, learning news and rumors, praying, cooking, crafting, all that sort of stuff is kind of your downtime sort of thing in between dungeons. So a lot of these folks will have little tasks that you can do, so I go pick those up. And then you also talk to them and ask them about rumors, like, have you heard anything interesting? Now, some of them are going to be just sort of, lore or like small talk, but others will actually provide a rumor that then pops up and shows you that there's like a new location on your map, which is cool. So that's going to give you ideas for like dungeons, caves, mines, encampments, and that sort of thing. Let's see if we can get someone. Okay, everybody's an avid fisher. This guy Frid, who's kind of a creepy looking Santa dude, he's pretty much the first guy I go to for a task. And basically what he asks you to do is gather some herbs for him, because he's old. It's basically 3 of them. You need agrimony, fleawort, and spearmint. And so there's always an agrimony over here by the carpenter. Pick that baby up. I'll also always grab blueberry shrubs whenever I can for snackage. Eat those. You can hold down Alt and then click them, and that'll get you to eat them. So before we head out of town now to kind of start getting ourselves towards level 2 with a couple of specific routes, let's pick some abilities. So we were going to go staff and pyromancy, right? So there's a couple different skills you can go with. I am going to start with fire barrage, and that's going to be our ranged attack. And then let me look at stats because it's been a while. And especially when you're starting out, I would start with getting active abilities. So don't start getting passives until you get a couple of these abilities that you can use in combat to kind of give yourself something you can do to like bump up damage and that sort of stuff. And I think we'll do hail of blows. All right, so we got that. And then finally, before leaving town, and this will kind of depend on who you have as a character, but you also can get a free weapon from the guards down here. So let's see. I'm not sure exactly what we want to get, if anything. So if I have a person that starts with a melee weapon, I'll usually grab a crossbow. If I have somebody that starts with a bow, maybe I'll get a melee weapon, that kind of thing. So let's see. Excuse me. So you can choose one item. Now, worst case, if there's something that you just don't want to use, get like a two-handed weapon, or I think actually the crossbow is worth the most money. So it gives you a few extra bucks. You can just take it and sell it, I think for us, we'll grab a dagger, and we can just throw it. The other option is you could get another spear or a staff and have like two staves. I don't know, just so you're not break it down. It's really not that critical with this Mahir run since we're basically just starting with what he has. So I'm just gonna grab a dagger just as a random like item I can now throw. If my backfire chance gets too high or something, we can go for that. All right, cool. So now, basically, what I'll typically start out doing is, remember we've got the task for the herbalist, so we got one of those. Fleawort is generally right along the road, so we'll probably pick one up pretty quickly on the next map. And then spearmint is a little bit of a crapshoot, so like if I don't get it on this walk where we're going down towards the Drunken Woodsman Inn and a little bit beyond, it often doesn't show up around forests, but what you can do is kind of do a circuit around the town, and oftentimes somewhere in the actual town map, there'll be spearmint. If not, somewhere on one of these tiles, you're going to find it. All right, let's go here. Now, I keep the dagger in my open inventory here because you can, when you're fighting with somebody, you can toss this straight from inventory by right-clicking and then throw. And it's also important to make sure you're keeping an eye on all your health stuff. So right now, you're at 1% hunger, 2% thirst, so we're in good shape. We've got food, so we can manage that. We've got water, so we can manage thirst. Intox, that's not an issue right now. Same for pain. But you can see where these thresholds of 25%, etc. is. I try to do everything I can to keep all of these things at or below 25 whenever possible. Same for fatigue. Because you can see where now, if you start getting to a point where your fatigue is at 26%, your pain is at 26%, those are two debuffs and things can really start to snowball negatively for you. So we're very cautious about things. I'd also pick up snacks, especially at low level. So pick up mushrooms that are not poisonous. And then take it slow as you walk around because your hearing and your vision is right here at this edge. Later on, you can get some skills like Pathfinder that are going to help you be able to hear enemies. And that goes a long way, it has for me, for staying alive. So basically what we're doing here is going to twofold. we want to go down to a certain area where there's somewhere along the road here is the carpenter's plane and like a busted out old wagon. So we want to get that because that's setting us up for a quest later on. But also we want to find a couple fights so that we can ding to level 2. And depending on what the situation is, you might even get level 3, but level 2 is kind of what we're aiming for before we do our first dungeon contract. So you'll see all the flea wart around here. Those can help if you get a bunch of them. They add 1% to your body condition. And so getting all of these up to 100% or at least, to a reasonable amount all plays into having a good mindset and sanity and morale, etc. Because, the worse condition you're in, the tougher it's going to be to stay positive, right? It's just like real life. If I broke my arm, I'm typically not happy about it. Okay, we are at the inn. I just pick up a bunch of random food and stuff that we can use. You can do some pretty simple stuff as far as cooking with just a couple of basic items, and it gives you just a little bit more variety, right? So like a meat skewer. So if we get one piece of meat, we've already got a meat skewer because we've got the mushrooms we picked up on the way. So we may not find anything here because it's flatbread. But as we find dogs and stuff, that's possible. Actually, and that reminds me, just as an added bonus too, if you're looking to butcher animals, you do need a blade of some sort. So that's where that dagger kind of helps out doubly so. Let's see, one of the hunters outside might actually have some meat. Let's take a peek. A ghoul heart. Okay, well, we're probably not going to eat that. Let's see if the other guy's got something. Okay, so that's a bird. So the issue with that is it's probably only going to provide morsels of meat, which are chicken nuggets, basically, which isn't enough to help you out as far as a main ingredient. It'll reduce your hunger a little bit, but no go past that. I'll always grab some water just whenever I go by it, and then just make sure that my water's topped off, just as a good little tip. Like I said, it's all preparing yourself ahead of time for things, and it gets to be a little bit more easy to deal with once you start making some money, right? Because then you don't have to be foraging through the friggin' woods to eat berries and stuff, but you start out pretty friggin' poor. So you also notice I'm taking a few steps at a time. You want to be cautious, right? Because what you want to do is try and come up on people, bandits and stuff, without them noticing you. So you want to kind of keep them at your far distant range, and then if possible kind of peel them out 1 to 2 at a time. I would recommend trying to do 1 at a time when you're starting. And there's a couple things you can do to do that. Moving like this. All right, so here's one guy, right? Now this is the wagon here, so there's probably at least 1 to 2 other people there. But what I can do is kind of depends on the person. So he's just 1 space away. You can shout. Let's see if he'll hear. Yeah, okay, so he heard. Now you want to try and keep some distance from him because he's going to get curious. Eventually he's going to see you. So that's when he sees you. And now a couple of spaces away from the tile, if he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away, he'll transition over to the next map with you. And other people that are further away won't. So we're going to go over here. Create some space because we're here. Now this guy's got a pitchfork, so it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. Alright, there's some damage. Now what I can do is kind of keep kiting him until Fire Barrage comes back up. But now he's also going to get a hit on us because he's got a reach weapon. Alright, so he's got us there, but now we can also either keep moving back until this refreshes again. Now the issue is the more times you cast that spell in like quick succession, the higher your backfire chance gets. So